Okay, so in this unit we're going to be learning about chemical reactions. We're going to be learning how to balance them and also how to predict products, how to tell what type of reaction that you have, and how to tell what products are going to be formed. Okay, so a chemical reaction is any reaction where a new substance is produced. And you guys have seen chemical reactions written out before, and you've seen where the reactants are what you start with. They're the chemicals that you begin mixing together, and they're going to react together to form a new product, something completely different. The reactants are always on the left side of the arrow. The products are always on the right side of the arrow. And the law of conservation of mass, which we've also already learned about, must be satisfied. And this is important when we get to balancing. Basically, everything that you start with in the beginning, you have to end up with. It doesn't just magically disappear. It has to be there somewhere. And we do that when we balance equations. Okay, so this is just a few things to let you know exactly what we're going to be learning in this unit. How to balance, how to identify types of reactants, how to predict products, and we'll get to that later on. Right now, we're just going to be focusing on balancing. Okay, when a chemical reaction actually happens, a few things can indicate that this chemical reaction occurred. First of all, if there's a temperature change, so does it get colder or hotter? If it changes color, if an odor is produced, if gas is produced, so there's bubbles formed, or if a precipitate forms. A precipitate is a solid, so if you mix two liquids together and a solid is formed, that's a precipitate. When we balance chemical equations, we follow these steps. First, you want to balance the atoms that appear only once on each side of the arrow. We're talking about one side of the arrow versus the other side of the arrow. So if, for example, you just have an iron all by itself, it's not bonded to anything, it's just an iron on one side of the arrow and there's another iron on the other side of the arrow, you want to do that one first. Then you can balance polyatomic ions, and that's those big list of ions that we had everybody learn. So if you see that polyatomic ion appear on both sides of the arrow, on the reactant side and the product side, balance that one next. And you're going to balance it as a whole unit. Then balance hydrogens, then balance oxygens. Never, ever, ever, ever change the subscripts of a compound in order to balance it. This is a huge, huge no-no. So whatever you do, don't make that last mistake. Okay, so we are going to do a few example problems, and you're going to want to write these down. Okay, so this pen doesn't write that great, so you'll have to bear with me. Okay, so we're going to do just some easy ones, and we'll do a whole lot more practice in class. Okay, so let's say we have NaCl. This is a compound. It's going to be our reactant. It's our reactant because it's on the left side of the arrow. And let's say it forms these products. You have a sodium and you have a chlorine. Now that number, the 2 right here with the chlorine, that is the subscript. You cannot ever, ever change the subscripts. Think of them as set in stone. You are unable to ever change those. What we do is that we put coefficients in front in order to balance it. So, okay, we've got 2 chlorines on the right side of the arrow, but only 1 chlorine on the left side of the arrow. So I can't just add a subscript, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a coefficient. So I put that coefficient in the front. So again, I can't just go add a subscript like that. That's not going to work. You can't change subscripts, you don't add them, you don't take them away. We just put the coefficient in front of the number. By doing that, that means I've got 2 sodiums, a little bit better, and 2 chlorines. That is telling you how many. Now if I go back to this side of the arrow, so This means that subscript also means I got 2 chlorines, so 2 and 2, my chlorines are balanced. But on the left side of the arrow, I have 2 sodiums, but on the right side of the arrow, I only have 1 sodium. Well, that's not going to work. We have to balance it. So again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a coefficient. So now I've got 2 sodiums on this side. So now my sodiums are balanced. Okay? Pretty easy. Let's do one more. Okay. Let's say we have we're going to have this aluminum oxide. Okay, so this is somewhat similar to the last one. So, again, the subscripts, those little numbers right there, I cannot change. You can't erase them and make them what you want to be. So, let's start. Let's start with our aluminums. So, on this side, I've got 2 aluminums. On this side, I've only got 1. Okay, so easy enough. I'm going to put a 2 there so that now I've got 2. Say, great, those balance. Okay, so on this side, I've got 2 oxygens here, and I've got 3 over here. Okay, so this is tricky. So you have to put a coefficient in front that's going to get it to balance. And this isn't always so easy. So if, for example, you were to put a 2 in front of here, okay, then you're going to multiply. So that gives you 2 times 3 for a total of 6 oxygens. So that means I've got 6 on this side. On this side, I only have 2 oxygens, so I have to go back and balance. So a lot of times it means going back and forth. So I've got 6 oxygens, so what can I multiply this 2 by to get 6? I multiply it by 3. I'm going to put a 3 coefficient there. So now I've got 3 times 2, 6 oxygens on this side. Okay, so oxygens are balanced. Now, we have to go back and double check our aluminums. Still have 2 aluminums here, but now, look, I've got 2 times 2, 4 aluminums. So now my aluminums are no longer balanced. So we gotta take that away. So I'm gonna have to change my coefficient. You can change coefficients as you go along, you just can't change subscripts. Okay, so what do I need to multiply? I got 4 over here. So easy change. I'm going to make that a 4 so that I have 4 aluminums on this side. Now, my aluminums are balanced and my oxygens are balanced. So it's okay to go back and forth and keep changing your coefficients until everything balances, but you cannot change the subscripts. And remember, it's the left side of the arrow. So everything on this side has to balance everything on this side. And that's the key to balancing. And we'll be doing lots of practice in class. So I'm going to put end notes here. You do not have to finish the rest of this PowerPoint for right now because that is something we're going to do next week. So just worry about the balancing and stop here for now.